Okay, so don't judge my picture. I did the best that I could. And I try to be creative a little bit with Microsoft Word and just a couple tools that I found. So the upcoming lesson that I was thinking about was using arrays for a multiplication to solve multiplication. And my objective was to use arrays as one way to think about how to understand multiplication. So I'm just going to walk you through what I did just so you can get an understanding of what I did. So when you're talking about arrays, I'm going to use movement, so physical activity, as my hook. With opening this lesson, I thought about getting some agility letters and just teaching the concept of rows and columns. So I went and found two agility, or I found an excuse me, an agility letter, and the letter actually has 5 boxes. And so I did one for the row and one for the column. So I drew columns on the side, and then I did an arrow going downward, because I wanted my students to know that that the columns are up and down, and then my rows go horizontal, which is from left to right. And so I drew an arrow to show that way as well. So in each one of the boxes, I actually wrote the numbers to display how many boxes I have. And then I did the same thing for how many boxes I have in each row. And I made sure that I counted this one again for my row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I am doing this so that my students can get an idea of just grasping the concept of rows and columns. And when you're using an array, you have to have the same amount of rows. You have to have equal amount of rows and columns when you're trying to figure out multiplication. So I then went over here and I drew basically the animation or illustration of rows and columns, and I colored in the rows and I colored in the columns. So I wanted to show my students how, rows are different, columns are different, but also I put the number 6 at the end of each one of my rows to let them know that you have to have the same number, equal amount of each box in each row. So I am going to display the multiplication sentence 5 times 6, and we're going to figure it out by the end of this hook, this do now. We're going to figure out that 5 times 6 gives us 30, and what they're going to do is they're just going to figure out that 5 times 6 is 30 by simply counting the number of boxes that we have inside of our agility letters. So what they're going to do is they're going to jump. One student will jump for the columns, the other student will jump for the rows. And of course, if they're jumping for the columns, they're going to make 5 jumps. And if you're jumping for the rows, they should jump 6 times until they get to the end. And I will have each student holding up the number 6 number. So once they get to the end of their row, they can see that there should be 6 boxes in each one, and each student will jump just to get themselves, loose and ready for the lesson instead of sitting down in their seat. So the movement will be for students to jump and move their feet to the boxes and able to count each box so they can figure out what is 5 times 6, which gives us 30. And I hope that this was easy for you to understand. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool. So yeah, let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts, feedback. Yes, I'll take it. And I'll show you my picture one more time in slow motion. Bam, bam, there we go. Thank you.